Okay, Rich, what are we playing this week then?
So today I thought we'd play Defender for the Atari 2600. This is one of the absolute classic arcade games, one of the classic retro arcade games. It was made in 1981 and it was ported to the Atari 2600 the same year. So have you got any experience with Defender?
No, actually, I haven't played
you don't?
No, weirdly enough.
Do you want to try out then?
Let's go.
Now I have to admit that I'm not actually the expert on this game either, but I have played it a reasonable amount over the years. So you can you scroll both left and right in the game. You sort of got to just shoot the enemies and protect people that are at the bottom around where the city is.
Not the lights.
Because yeah, there's sort of square boxes at the bottom. The aliens pick them up and run away with them basically. I think one of them's been grabbed.
Yeah, look.
See, he's grabbing that dude there. So you got to shoot them and then pick them up before they slam into the ground, which he just did. So obviously this is one of the most important games ever made, really. It's one of the first sort of hardcore arcade games, and it really influenced, oh blast, it really influenced the whole of the shoot 'em up genre, really. All shoot 'em up sort of owe a debt of gratitude to this game in some ways. Look at this guy was fast, wasn't he? What I was going to do about him.
Taking none of your shit.
Oh,
What?
I shot him at the last second.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so this game was originally designed by a guy called Eugene Jarvis, and the game was released by William. Oh fucking hell! This is not going to be good, is it? That's it.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, so like I was saying before I unceremoniously died, the game was made by a guy called Eugene Jarvis, who was one of the first sort of he's one of the first sort of superstar programmers, game designers, along with people like we said before, like David Crane. You having problems there, Chris?
Just got to get used to the... Oh, my God.
At the time, Williams had very few hits in the video gaming market. Most of their games were just sort of rip-offs of other people's games, really. So this was sort of their first really big original game. And Jarvis himself he'd been making pinball machines primarily before making this. This was sort of his attempt at beating Space Invaders and Asteroids, really. They were the games that he really liked at the time. He's just sort of going past him over and over.
That's not fair.
You're a little bit better now. How many levels have you done?
3, I think.
I think people at the time when this came out, they found it quite daunting, actually, the arcade game, from what I've heard. They took one look at it and all of the buttons there, they weren't used to having, I can't think, it might have had like 3 or 4 buttons on it, plus the, the directional controls as well. And apparently people sort of avoided it a little bit. I don't know where that guy was nicked. Well, it's too late. Sorry, mate.
He's getting probed.
A lot of these guys getting abducted, aren't they? I'm missing a lot of them here. I think that guy is dying, even though he was like on the ground at the time.
No, he actually dropped from the height of a building, so...
I don't think it's to scale though, is it?
Yeah,
these people are like half the size of the buildings anyway.
Yeah, they could be a big people.
I'm not doing too badly, really. I mean, like I said before, we never had this game on the Atari. This is where it sends you to like a different screen.
And that's where it sends you to death.
Wow. Yeah, we never actually, we never had this game on the Atari 2600 back in the day, because my family actually bought an Atari, I think the year I was born actually, or possibly the year earlier. And we used to play games like Galaxian and Pac-Man on it mainly. I don't know how you didn't die there.
I don't know why he wasn't getting shot. All the bullets were going through him. No.
Yeah, you got to sort of let them, bring them up a bit higher really, so you got time to catch them. Yeah, and the guy who designed it, he was quite a talented guy as well actually. He went on to make Robotron, which was actually another really sort of turn around in it and push you forward.
Yeah,
Robotron was sort of another really hardcore arcade shoot 'em up, like from the early era as well. And not only that, but I think he worked on Smash TV, which was another cool sort of game like that.
I hate that. You shit, you came down at the wrong time. No, can't get that. Can't get...
Oh, he's done it.
Gordon Bennett, what flying? You can fuck off and oh, look at that!
Yes, I think it's probably good for kids to have the sort of Atari 2600 around, because obviously, like I said, my family actually bought this the year I was born, so this was probably the console that I was most playing around age 6 or 7, really.
If I gave this to my son, he would say, "What on earth is this, Dad?"
Yeah.
Kids nowadays.
On the other side, though, my niece sat and played Adventure. She played Adventure for about an hour quite happily. So, my niece has more taste.
Okay, Richard, what do you think of the game then?
Well, it's another classic, isn't it, for the Atari? It's one of the very earliest sort of scrolling shoot 'em ups, one of the earliest scrolling games that sort of took off as well, really. It's got quite a few elements for a game of its time. You've got momentum of the ship, haven't you? You sort of spin around and you fly backwards. You've got to keep an eye on the aliens, trying to pick people up and shoot them and rescue people as well. It's not just shooting action and nothing else, like in obviously Space Invaders and Asteroids, the games that influence this, they are literally just enemies here, or an asteroid, just shoot it, and there's not any other aspects, whereas this has a few different things going on. So for the time, this is pretty amazing, really. It's quite easy to see how people would become obsessed with it, and the arcade game probably is a little bit more hardcore than this as well, with the setup, with the different sort of, the controls are a bit better, I think, in the arcade game, more enemies on the screen. But I mean, this is quite a reasonable port of the game, I think. I mean, it's a fair representation of the game, What do you reckon then?
Well, it's a classic, isn't it? It is the granddaddy of side-scrolling shooters. Nothing else could have been if this hadn't have been.
Yeah.
Shall we say? So I'm very thankful towards it, because some of my favourite games are side-scrolling shooters.
Yeah.
Gameplay-wise, it's quite unique, isn't it? You don't see anything else around that time.
Yeah.
It's quite addictive in some ways as well. Especially when you can come in and kind of slide round behind them, because you have that momentum with you, and then shoot them in the back. That's quite.
You're sort of flying through and shooting a whole load in a row as well, and then spinning around and taking someone out, and last minute saves for the people
catching them just before they're falling. That's quite rewarding, isn't it? Yeah, I really liked it.
Sound effects are sort of just the sort of thing you always get with the Atari 2600.
Yeah, so they could do really
chunky noises, but they sort of work with it as well, don't they?
What do you
explosions
expect, really?
and such.
So what are you going to score it then, Rich?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. This is one of the classics. That's why we're playing it, So I'm going to give it the full 5 out of 5 personally. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a full 5, isn't it? It's, as I said before, it's the granddaddy. Nothing else could have come without it.
Okay, guys, that's Defender for this week. Absolute classic game.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it kind of inspired as well, really, for the time, I think.
Absolutely. So if you think it's inspired, guys, let us know in the comments. Tell us about it. Like and subscribe. It helps us, and we're always releasing great new content like this. And we will see you next week with another game, guys. Take care.
See ya.